Hello, everyone, and welcome back to From the Stands College Football Game Day Show. It is Week 7. My name is Brian McCardle. Alongside me, yet again, we got Mr. Andy Hopper, Mr. Tom Scavetta. We will jump right into the weekly recap for Week 6. None of our teams are doing well, so I'm sure you're about to hear about it. Andy, we'll start with you. What were
Well,
you watching Week 6?
unfortunately, I was in the crowd on Friday for Nebraska's 20-7 win over Illinois. Just an absolute fucking embarrassing performance. Back-to-back embarrassing performances in a row. They go like 14 plays, 76 and a half yards on the opening drive. Have a 4th and goal from literally the fucking half-inch line, and they come out in the goddamn shotgun. Fire Barry Lunny into the goddamn sun. He's just in over his head. Can't call plays. This is all on Bielema as well. I don't know what the hell they're doing. The defense looks really, really rough. I will say they played better. They didn't look that awful, especially in the second half. They held Nebraska, so I think just 3 points might have been scoreless. But the offense is just absolutely anemic, and yeah, you'll hear more about them later. It's just so fucking disheartening at this point. Like, I was so fired up on Friday, fellas. Like, we left probably about like 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter because there was just no point. Like, it was just over. So deflating after the first drive. The rest of the second half, I think they had like 6 yards or something like that. It's just like you're averaging 18 points a game. Your quarterback is fucking tied for first, I think, in the nation with 11 interceptions. I know you lost a lot of pieces, but it sucks. You'll hear more about it in the next segment from me. Spoiler, but let's talk about some good games. Oklahoma over Texas was awesome. 34-30. Dylan Gabriel inserting himself into the Heisman race. I was fucking wrong, fellas. Shocker. UCLA's defense looked really, really good against Washington State, and then as soon as I start talking up Cam Ward, he has one of the worst games of his life. So not good. UCLA 25-17 win. And then the other one I wanted to talk about briefly, Arizona taking USC to fucking triple overtime at the Coliseum. USC's defense once again proving to be an absolute liability, folks. But credit Arizona, they've played Washington really tough. Now they play USC really tough, so they're playing some decent football right now. So yeah, those are the ones that stood out to me. Other than my team being absolutely maddening, making me want to pull my hair out.
All right, Tom, what about you?
The shot that I called last week, Oklahoma over Texas. Not surprised by this result. Texas didn't exactly beat Bama convincingly. There was over 1,000 yards of total combined offense in this game. And we saw Dylan Gabriel, Brian's former guy, going ham. I mean, the Sooners defense had 5 sacks. Quinn Ewers threw 2 picks. Worthy and Whittington did their things. Brooks did his thing, and they still lost. Why did Texas lose this game? A couple points I brought up on last week's show. Turnovers. Longhorns 3, Sooners 0. I should have did this in reverse order, get the negative out of the way first. Put on to some more bad stuff. What the fuck, Notre Dame? Losing to Louisville on the road. We knew it was going to be difficult. Their 3rd consecutive ranked game. Back-to-backs on the road with Duke and then Louisville. Sam Hartman had 5 turnovers, 3 picks, and 2 fumbles, his first turnovers of the season. The others happened to come in one fucking game. Audric Estime, 10 rushes for just 20 yards. Credit to the Cardinals defense for stopping the run. Mitchell Evans is the only consistently open target for Sam Hartman. And Notre Dame has now lost 2 of their last 3 games, so our college football playoff hopes are done. Maybe next year. I hope Marcus Freeman can get the boys together quickly here and say, look, even though we're not a CFP team this year, our season's not over. We want to get into a New Year's 6. That's the question now. Can you come back and spoil USC's hopes this weekend? That's the question that's left to be answered.
Yeah, I think I have pretty much the exact same games there. I think everyone was watching that Red River shootout. OU with that late drive. Those are the games that you watch and you're like, this is the game that puts you on the pedestal to get to a CFP. It's like the Heisman moment of games, I guess. They got over that hump. I think with as good as Texas has been lately, not many people thought they were going to win that game. But, I mean, hell of a game as it is most years. They did not get blown out 49-0 again. They come away with a win. The other game that I will mention that didn't get mentioned, but has been mentioned ad nauseum on social media, was Miami not taking the kneel against Georgia Tech to run out the clock. One of the dumbest endings to a game you will ever see in your life. I don't know. Was he trying to pad the stats? Did he have the over on rushing yards or something? I do not know. Apparently he's done this at Oregon as well before. So Georgia Tech picks up that fumble, gets the game-winning touchdown, and one of the most embarrassing coaching moments probably will ever see in our lifetimes unfolds right in front of our eyes, and Miami takes the loss. But that will bring us into our first segment of this week 7. It is, I'm not even mad, I'm just disappointed. We are about halfway through the season in terms of game time. And we're going to give you each 2 or 3 of our teams that we're most disappointed with, in regards to play, expectations, hype, all those types of things. Who is the most disappointing? Andy, we'll start with you on this one. Give us your first team.
I think you can guess where the fuck I'm going with this. You're 2-4 Illinois Fighting Illini. Those 2 wins where you have to claw and fight to beat Toledo and Florida Atlantic at home. By the way, you just get beat by fucking Nebraska, who's been the laughing stock of not just the Big Ten but college football throughout the year, throughout the past couple years, and give Matt Rule his first Big Ten win. The week before that, you gave your fucking previous defensive coordinator, now head coach, his first Big Ten win. With a 1-4 team. They are incompetent. The coaching staff is in over their head. I want to fucking stay the course. I'm not going to be completely out on Brett Bielema. I realize how much talent this team lost, but to not even be utilizing the guys they do still have on this roster is fucking insane. The offensive line is terrible. They cannot block a nosebleed. Brian, Tom, the 3 of us could get through that offensive line right now. It is just absolutely atrocious. Altmaier, obviously, he's very young in his football career, so I get it. Mistakes are going to happen. He didn't start a lot of games at Ole Miss, but I don't think he's getting a lot of help from his offensive coordinator, who just does not know how to call plays. Again, 4th and 1 on the half-inch line. You come out not only in the fucking shotgun, but you don't have your 6'3", 250-pound running back on the field. You need 1 fucking yard. Do they watch football? Do they watch film? Have you seen anybody and everybody running the tush-push right now? Come on, guys. Like, it is just so disheartening. You win 8 games last year. You make an argument they could have won fucking 10, and you followed up with this now. You're 2-4. It's week 7. You're going to Maryland, who's favored by 2 touchdowns and will probably win by 4. The defense has taken such a step back, it is appalling. They are giving up 28 points a game, over 400 total yards. They're allowing their opponents to convert on over 40% of their third downs. Offensively, you're scoring 19 points a game. You're converting on 31% of your third downs. Oh, but did I mention last week against Nebraska, you've had 21 yards rushing. You should be fucking ashamed of yourselves. You all should be fucking ashamed. You don't have to win every game. But you expect to sell these tickets and try to fill up this stadium, and that's the product you put on the field? It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. The only bright spot on this team so far has been Isaiah Williams, because he's the only one that's been able to produce anything that's been impressive, and he's now 2nd all-time in Illinois history with 190 total receptions for his career. So shout out to you. And listen, I'm still a fan. I'm still going to root for the team, but like, this has just been absolutely atrocious so far through 6 weeks. And it's the saddest part is it's something we've seen so many times before with Illinois. It happened the year after they went to the Rose Bowl in 2009. It happened in the early 2000s. The drop-off after these great seasons, when good programs, elite programs, take steps forward and keep building, just continually is something that Illinois has proven they're not able to do. And hey, maybe with all this money, the $6.5 million a year you're paying Brett Bielema, you'd hope he'd be able to figure that out. So you better hope you go at least 4-2 in these last 6 weeks. You got to play Wisconsin. You have to play Maryland this week. So you're not beating them as of right now. They're just not. And fuck, I sound so bitter and like a fucking loser right now. But I root for this on Saturdays, and then I get to get my hopes up for the Bears on Sundays. So that just takes you into my mind this fall. Just nothing good. Nothing good at all. I'm sorry that was just a long diatribe, and I needed to let that out. My second most disappointing team is Pittsburgh. They're fucking 1-4. This is a Pat Narduzzi team that has been near the top of the ACC the past couple of years, have been contending for ACC titles. You had Kenny Pickett, who's now starting NFL quarterback. Keaton Slovis had his cup of tea last year. You get Phil Dracovic to come over from Boston College, a former Notre Dame guy. Shout out to my good buddy here, Tom Scavetta, who apparently sucks so bad as a 6th-year senior that he's now a tight end. Absolute dumpster fire. Did I mention their only win, by the way, is against Wofford? They don't have an FBS win, and their last game, they just lost to Virginia Tech, one of the worst teams in Power 5, by 17. So by the transitive property, Pitt, you are also one of the worst teams in the Power 5. Not getting any easier for them this week, too, with Louisville coming up. So, yeah, they are a dumpster fire. And then my third one is UTSA, and I think this is just more me having personal higher expectations for UTSA. I mean, the past 2 years they won 11 and 12 games. I think for Jeff Traylor's career, the first 3 years, not including this year, the 2-3 start, they're 30 and 10, which is pretty damn good. Yet to get a bowl win, but they've been really good. They have Frank Harris back again. They have Josh Cephas back again. And they've just had a couple very rough games. And they had to go to Tennessee, which I'll give them a pass on that one. They had a winnable game against Army, where Army just looked like the much better team. And it's not getting. I mean, they're in the American Conference now. I think this is their first year in the American, if that is correct. And I don't know. I guess maybe this is just my personal expectations for them. 2-3 is not the worst position you could be in. They definitely could turn it around. But when I see UTSA, I don't expect to see 2-3 by their name.
Yeah, definitely. I know we hyped them up a lot on the show. They've been really fun to watch the last couple of years. So, but I think it's fair to say the brunt of that pain was taken by Illinois there.
Yeah.
In your segment. Tom, we'll move on to you. Give us your teams.
First and foremost, I'm going with TCU. 3-3 this year on a 2-game losing streak. They lost to West Virginia and BYU. They still have Texas and Oklahoma on their schedule. They went from a national runner-up to a 500 team. I understand they lost a lot of players, but it just hasn't been a good year for the Horned Frogs. Next up, LSU. Brian Kelly-led team. What a surprise, right? It's a real damn shame that this is happening. I'm not proud of this, but Brian Kelly-led teams seem to not be able to capitalize on missed opportunities. This is what a lot of people are saying is a down year for the SEC. You have Bama struggling. You have LSU struggling. Georgia almost lost the game, even though they're still undefeated. And the fact that they just can't capitalize with a team that has Jaden Daniels, Logan Diggs, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr., that's a big problem. Their defense has given up 30-plus points the last 3 weeks, and they're 4-2. Finally, my Fighting Irish, Marcus Freeman and Gerard Parker are holding back Sam Hartman. The O-line is not as good as it was in previous seasons outside of Joe Alt. No wide receiver has more than 15 receptions through 7 games. They have been very, very streaky. And then, of course, choking to Ohio State might have been the most painful loss since the 2012 national title game. It was a completely different type of game because Notre Dame should have won against Ohio State, but they didn't. They made too many mistakes at the end, and even though I just said they should have won, they really should have won, but they deserved to lose with the way they played at the end of that game. And then Louisville, they just didn't show up. It was a blowout. The final score doesn't show what really happened in the game. Very disappointed with the Irish this season. So I went with 3.
All right, yeah, and then for my 3 here, my first is Texas A&M. Obviously, this is a team that is always in the running, always an option for one of these types of segments because of the contract they gave Jimbo. All the pieces that they've been putting together, just so much money is flowing into this program right now since his tenure started with the Aggies. His current buyout right now, if things continue to not go as well as they hoped, and he doesn't hit those key achievements that they're hoping for in the SEC West, currently $76.8 million if he gets fired in the middle of this season. This team has been basically a one-hit wonder since he started there with a 9-1 record. They did get that Orange Bowl win. That was 2020. That was so far just the peak of what they've been doing, and now they're going a little bit downhill. Everyone's waiting for them, to just do more. You have the number 1 recruiting class in all of 2022. Backed by that massive NIL collective. When we say the money's flowing, they're pretty much printing money through their boosters in that program because they want to be that Alabama, they want to be that LSU, and they want to get, I would say national championship, but let's, start off a little lower. They want to at least win the SEC first to get into the playoff, and they're just not doing that. They currently have the number 4 recruiting class for 2024. So, they have a wealth of things just flowing into this program right now, and it's not translating into wins on the field. So, yeah, 5-7 last year, that's really awful. And I think that's probably what started the talks of Texas A&M actually considering to buy out Jimbo, despite how absolutely massive that contract would be to buy out. My second team here is Pitt. Andy, you cover them very well as well. I think probably the target that everyone is looking at is Phil Jerkovich. He is doing his best impression of every QB that we make fun of on the show and how bad that he's been, to the point that, like you said, he is now being looked at as a tight end. So this is Tim Tebow, but before the NFL type of thing going on here. And I just don't know. Yeah, I guess there's a little bit of an excuse. They had Kenny Pickett before this. That was that was a gem for them, and now to go to this, it was never going to be that good. The prior seasons were very good. They did win that ACC title. Jerkovic was never going to do that, but you wouldn't think that they would be 1-4 right now, with their sole win being to an 0-6 FCS school in Wofford. And then my last one here is Arkansas, another team that we talked up pretty much, through the entirety of the last 2 seasons since Pittman has taken over the Pittman era. I love the Pittman era. I thought he was going to bring in, a dominant trench on each side of the ball here, especially on the O-line, given that that's his specialty. And that would open the floodgates for, KJ Jefferson to just take over the games with his arm and his feet. But the O-line has actually, in my opinion, regressed this year, and Jefferson is getting no time in the pocket. It's causing him to force his throws, and because of that, he now has more interceptions this season than the entirety of last season already. We're only through 6 games. So they're on a 4-game losing streak. This is not looking good. They are dead last in the SEC in yards per play on offense. So that is my 3 teams. That is 9. Well, me and Andy both had Pitt, so that's 8 teams that we are just very disappointed. Not even mad. We are just disappointed in them. That will move us on to our next segment is Parlay Party. We're throwing a little bit of betting action down here. The only requirements that we have, got to have a minimum of 4 picks and a minimum payout of plus 1,000. Andy, throwing your picks up on the board. Walk us through.
So going a little safer this week. I'm having some trouble picking spreads. I think it's going to be a good week of football. I think there are going to be a lot of tight games. And there were a couple where I'd rather just bet the total and root for points. So my first one, I'm starting out Kansas minus 2.5 at Oklahoma State. I believe Kansas is way better than Oklahoma State. Simple as that. Over 67.5 in Oregon at Washington. Points. Both very, very explosive offenses. 2 really fun quarterbacks to watch. So again, I want to root for points. Over 56.5 in Florida at Carolina. I think Miami at North Carolina. I think Miami's going to come out pissed after whatever the hell that was at the end of the Georgia Tech game and try to put some points on the board. You got Drake May. Drake May's got Tez Walker back and some other nice weapons around him. So I think 56.5 is a reasonable number there. I'll take the over. And then finally, life's too short to bet the under unless the Iowa Hawkeyes are on the field, ladies and gentlemen. It is under 34.5, Wisconsin at Iowa. No Cade McNamara. It's the backup quarterback. I am forgetting his name, but his stats are very forgettable as well. So you're not really missing out on much. The offense is anemic. The defense is, a classic, very strong Iowa defense. So I don't expect them to score a lot of points. I think Wisconsin wins the game, and I like the under. So, typically I'm not an under better, but we're going to throw it in here and hope it works. I think if it hits, it'd be one of the lowest totals to ever hit in college football.
I love it. All right, Tom, give us your bets.
So this week, went a little crazy last week. I still have 6 legs this week. And first, I want to say I did sell on 4 of these legs just a little bit. First up, Oregon and Washington in the over, but I have it at 63.5. That comes in at minus 160. Bo Nix versus Michael Penix Jr. should be outstanding. Love that QB matchup, and the Pac-12 typically does not play defense, so why not? Colorado minus 8.5. It was originally 11.5. I brought it down by 3 points, field goal essentially. They're playing Stanford. I think they should be safe with that despite being on the road. That comes in at minus 146. Next up, I have BYU plus 7.5. I believe the spread was 5.5. I added to that. Josh Hoover is starting at quarterback for TCU, so I like BYU at least by 8 points or less to lose. Tennessee minus 3 comes in at minus 110. I like what Tennessee has. I think they take care of Texas A&M. I know I've said this time and time again, boys. I don't trust Texas A&M. I don't. Next up, Kansas State money line plus 105. Did you know that Kansas State has won the last 7 matchups against Texas Tech? Well, if you don't, you do now. They come in at plus 105. Louisville minus 6.5. They just beat Notre Dame. They have not lost. They come in at minus 142. Pitt is also coming off a 17-point loss to Virginia Tech. The odds on my app came in at plus 2896, or if you use a 50% profit boost, you can get it up to plus 4345. $10 for $434.57. So one last leg, sold points, and you're still getting an awesome payout for low risk.
Love it. And you hit it with that boost, so looking for that one to hit as well. I realize we didn't try to tear apart Andy, so Tom, you're off the hook as well. We're going to be nice guys this week, I guess. Moving on to my parlay, just a little leg here. Ohio State minus 14 against Purdue. Hudson Card hasn't really worked out yet, at least. For Purdue, he's been a liability through the air with 5 interceptions to go along with the just 6 touchdown passes. Ohio State has all the weapons on the other side of the ball, so even though Kyle McCord isn't quite the elite talent at quarterback that Ohio State teams of the past have had, he's playing to his next best strength, which is smart throws and consistency, which is the type of thing we saw out of Bennett at UGA. That got him 2 national titles, so that's good enough for me to, 2 touchdowns against a struggling Purdue team. I like it. Wisconsin minus 6.5 versus Iowa. Iowa offense, abysmal. Throw it in the trash, just like we had the last couple of years. I don't know why they even put the offense out there. They're currently last place in all of FBS in yards per game at a measly 249 yards per game. They're also last in first downs and last in completion percentage, just 45.9%. That offense is non-existent. If you told me you could get even money on Wisconsin to beat Iowa by just a touchdown with Iowa's offense, Iowa might not score more than 10 points. They might not score more than 7, so I think Wisconsin can do that themselves. Louisville minus 6.5 at Pitt. We just, both me and Andy spoke about how bad Pitt is right now. I trust Louisville to win this by at least 1 tutty. I sold points, a little bit of points on that one, just to keep it under a touchdown. And then 2 big underdogs here to take the payout up. I have Arizona moneyline at Washington State. Washington State, like Andy said, Cam Ward had one of his not so great games of late, and I think he's, these are the big time games. He struggled a little bit. Arizona just took USC to the brink, down to the wire in triple overtime. Dolora looks really good at QB, and their defense is actually pretty good. So, this is a risky one, but plus 225 on that one. So I'm taking it, and then to go along with it, UCLA underdog money line as well at Oregon State. UCLA really showed out against Utah. I know no Cam Rising, obviously, but Dante Moore actually looks really comfortable now. We always talk about how he's a freshman, but he doesn't seem to be struggling or forcing any errors in his youth here. And if this game stays low scoring, I like their shot because their defense has really shown out for UCLA. I know the Pac-12, along with the Big 12, we kind of make fun of for their lack of defenses, we'll say. But yeah, they look actually pretty legitimate. And if UCLA wins the Pac-12, I don't know if they sneak into a playoff here because there's so many really, really good undefeated teams, but I think they definitely can pull off a New Year's 6, and that is $10 to win, 317 at plus 3,073. No boost on that one, but that is okay because I like that payout just as well. Now we'll move us into our final segment of every show. Actually, it is Shots and Chasers, our games of the week. Starting off at noon, we have Florida State taking on Syracuse. Andy, we'll start with you. Who's taking this game?
Florida State at home. They're getting 17 points. Kind of feels like a lot. These are 2 offenses that are both, they're very similar. They're both putting up just over 430 yards per game. Syracuse only at 33 points a game, opposed to Florida State at 42.5. So I will give Florida State the slight edge here, maybe a little bit more than slight edge. At home, I think Travis is the better quarterback, although Schrader has impressed me at times throughout his career at Syracuse, but I think overall a better team. They're the number 4 team in the nation. They're at home, so they definitely have a little bit of an advantage there. They're 17-point favorites for a reason. I will take the Seminoles.
All right, Tom.
Well, the Orange have lost 2 games. The Noles still undefeated. The Orange back-to-back blowout losses to Clemson and UNC. We know the Noles beat Virginia Tech last week, 39-17. Jordan Travis has only been sacked 5 times this entire season. That offensive line is going to eat. Trey Benson, solid running back with 6 touchdowns. And then you got Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman, 2 star wide receivers. I really like what they bring to the table. Keon Coleman leads the Noles with 6 touchdowns. And you have Jared Verse, who's a projected top 10 pick in this year's draft, coming off one end. And you have Kalen DeLoach off the other end, who is just as good. Garrett Schrader, 5 picks. He is mobile, though. He has 6 rushing touchdowns on the year. But Quint Allen and Garrett Schrader are that whole Syracuse offense. Dino Babers' hot seat gets hotter. They drop to 0-3 in the ACC. Give me Florida State.
Yeah, I'm taking Florida State as well. They have struggled lately, which is why I put this one on the board. It was a little bit weak at noon, but Syracuse is known to pull off some of these upsets in games like this. But FSU, I don't think they're going to struggle in back-to-back games very much because the team is very solid. The first time we've said that probably in about a decade since the James era. FSU 6th in the nation in scoring at 42.5 points per game. And yeah, Jordan Travis has just been absolute money for FSU. He's grown so well into that starting role for the Noles. He's got 12 touchdowns through the air and no interceptions in his last 132 straight passes. Not going to bring up the ratio on it, but I will just mention that that is quite the streak there. FSU doesn't have any elite running backs like they're like they typically have in those elite Noles offenses of the past that we see in those highlight reels when they go for those natties. So you kind of have to rely on Travis a little too much, which is maybe why they are struggling. It's a little bit one-dimensional of an offense from FSU. But listen, Syracuse has been blown out in back-to-back weeks by the only top opposition they played in Clemson and UNC. I think FSU is, we saw them beat Clemson in a close game. I think they're also better than UNC, so I think Syracuse struggles here and FSU gets the win. In our Chaser slot for noon, we have James Madison taking on Georgia Southern. A little bit of untypical teams, untypical outside of the P5 action here. Andy, we'll start with you. Who's winning this one?
I'm not going to pretend to know too much about both of these teams, but I don't. But just kind of from looking it over, Georgia Southern is 10th in the nation with 337 passing yards per game, and JMU is giving up 311 pass yards per game. So that methinks that could be a problem for the Dukes. So give me the upset. Technically, I will take Georgia Southern to go into James Madison and take the victory.
All right, Tom?
Yeah, when I look at this game, I look at two solid teams. The Sun Belt, top notch right here. Davis Burnett, quarterback for the Eagles, having a solid season. O.J. Arnold averages 7.5 yards per carry, really good between the tackles and on halfback stretch plays. I like what Caleb Hood and Derwin Burgess Jr. bring to the table in the receiving game, each of them with 35-plus receptions on the year. However, this defense does scare me a little bit. They gave up 28 points to that Coastal Wave in Coastal Carolina, and then 35 points to UAB. When I look at James Madison, Jordan McLeod, a slightly better quarterback in my opinion. Tight end Zach Horton averages 24 yards per catch. He is elite over the middle of the field, gets open with ease, and that defensive line, much, much better. You got Jalen Green, Mikhail Kamara, and Jamari Chroma, all with 4 or more sacks. The Dukes have 23 sacks through 5 games, guys. That's about 4.5 sacks per game. So give me James Madison.
Yeah, I'm taking James Madison as well. Love that defensive stat, which I did not know. I don't think I would have picked Georgia Southern regardless, even if I just wanted to go against the herd here. But yeah, you love to see that on the defensive side of the ball. And then Jordan McLeod, I got to talk about him because he used to play for UCF, current UCF rival USF, but he's an ex-USF QB, moved to Arizona, and is currently at James Madison. He sits there with a QB rating of 168. They are going to have to go against I guess we'll say top weapon, but it is kind of two weapons here. It is their dual threat running backs of Georgia Southern, O.J. Arnold and Jalen White. They split the carries very evenly. They're sharing the load pretty much perfectly. Yards almost identical, carries almost identical, and rushing touchdowns also almost identical. In fact, when you include their wide receivers, they're about as socialist as it comes because they have 5 players tied for 3 touchdowns to lead the team. So they do like to share the ball, and that can hurt you when you try to focus on one guy who you think is a top talent, and they can just hit you with the second, the third, and the fourth guy. But yeah, I think James Madison, too many weapons for this Georgia Southern team, and I think the Dukes take it. Moving into 3:30, probably the top game of the week here because the winner of this, they really have their pick of the litter for the Pac-12 title game because it's going to put them on top by themselves. It is number 7 Washington taking on number 8 Oregon. Andy, we'll start with you. Who's winning this one?
Man, this is a tough one. This is game of the week for me. It's this, like I said before, I'm just rooting for points. This is the number 1 and number 2 rated offense as far as yards per game. Washington just a shade over 570, Oregon 560. And for me, I think a big difference here is to this point, I believe the Oregon defense has performed tad bit better than Washington's defense has. I'll give Washington a slight edge being that it's at home. It's in Seattle. Give me the Huskies. I think they pull out a very, very close one.
Put a little switcheroo there. Tom, how do you like in this one?
2 undefeated teams, Bo Nix versus Michael Penix Jr. Elite QB matchup in Washington. Huskies favored by 3. Nix just 1 pick on the year, completes 80% of his passes. Bucky Irving and Jordan James on the ground are elite. 11 combined total touchdowns between the two. Troy Franklin should be a second-round draft pick this year with 7 touchdowns already on the season. over 530 yards on just 32 catches is very impressive in its own right. Not to mention Trayshawn Holden and Tez Johnson have 3 touchdowns each. So you want to talk about complementary options for Bo Nix. They're there defensively. Kyrie Jackson, 2 picks, and Jordan Birch with 3 sacks. 2 awesome players. Remember, they smacked Colorado and they smacked Stanford by the exact same score, 42-6. Huskies are coming off a bye. Penix, 1 yard shy of 2,000 passing yards through 5 games. So he's averaging, do the math, fellas, that's 400 passing yards a game. But the competition hasn't exactly been elite. Only sacked 3 times. His O-line is great. Dylan Johnson, solid on the ground. Roma Dunzy, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, and tight end Jake Westover has 4 touchdown receptions on the season. I really love their offense in this game. Their defense, only 6 sacks. And let's remember, they gave up 32 points to Cal and had a scare on the road against Arizona. I am rolling with the Quack Pack in an upset. Give me Oregon.
Yeah, this is the first time that both teams here have been ranked in the top 10 in this matchup. They've met 114 times, so this is rarefied air here for this matchup. Heisman hopefuls on both sides of the ball, which is really weird to talk about because the Heisman favorite in everyone's mind has typically been Caleb Williams. He's not even in this game, and this is being talked up as a lot of Heisman hype on each team here. So definitely an interesting battle. Penix leads the country in yards passing and total offense per game. Nick's not too far behind. He's 14th in yards passing. But something interesting is that he has only played 14 passing plays in the final 15 minutes, or I should just say last quarter of the first 5 games. So he is, a fair bit behind Penix here in terms of statistics, but that's because they're resting him. I don't think Penix has been at risk for injury or anything like that, so it's not like, leaving him in the game has done much to jeopardize his condition or anything, but it's just to say that Bo Nix is right up there with Mr. Michael Penix Jr. Penix Jr. is now expected to have all his weapons for the first time since week 3. Wide receiver Jalen McMillan missed the last 2 games after a leg injury. He is back. Romeo Odunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan. He's got them all. Through the first 5 games, they have combined for almost 1,400 yards already and 15 receiving touchdowns. So it's an offense that you have to keep up with. The Ducks do have the second best total defense and best pass defense in the Pac-12, so they're up for the challenge. And maybe the most notable quote here could just be adding a little bit of smoke to the fire. This is Washington's wide receiver coach, Coach Shepard. He says, quote, "Probably the best pass defense in the USA and the best pass defense I've seen in my coaching career." Boys, I don't know if he's lying, if he's just trying to, catch them off their game here. But if he's, being truthful here, my history of college secondaries doesn't run, decades deep. But if he's being truthful, that is quite the compliment there. Unfortunately, I don't think Washington pulls this off. I just think Oregon is too balanced here. This game is going to be really close, I feel like. Last possession type stuff. I really wish this was a night game, but I just, in my gut, I feel Oregon takes it. But this game could really go either way, and I'm excited to watch this one. And then in our chaser slot, 4-3-30, we have Wisconsin taking on lowly Iowa. Again, we're a little short for options here in the 3:30 time slot, which is why Iowa has somehow made it onto this card. Andy, we'll start with you. Can they score any points, let alone beat Wisconsin here?
I mean, no, their offense is fucking abysmal. Wisconsin. Their defense is good enough that it just gets them close enough in games where they just win on fourth quarter bullshit, as my friend Grant Baker, who is an Iowa fan, would say. But yeah, I think Wisconsin wins the game. I don't think there's a lot of points scored. I think it's an ugly one that you probably don't need to watch, but unless you're a sicko like us. So,
all right, Tom.
Yeah, with this game, I'm looking at not a lot of points. Huge matchup in the Big Ten West, though, I will say. Both teams with just 1 loss. Wisconsin is favored by 2 possessions. The Badgers have over 200 rush yards per game. Braylon Allen Catlett with 7 tutties. Ches Malusi right behind him. They rely on that because Tanner Mordecai has been a little inconsistent throwing the football, but, their defense is great. Luke Fickell doing a good job since taking over this program. You have Hunter Waller, 2 picks on the year with 50 tackles. He is all over the field. Very excited to see him and what he brings to the table. Yeah, you know what? I don't know too much about Iowa, if I'm going to be honest. Their only loss was to Washington State, and that was at Washington State, guys. They're not a slouch team, despite not being able to maybe score a lot of points. They're still respectable, at least more than last year. But here's the problem. Cade McNamara and his 51% completion percentage. That's the problem. Is it Cade? Is it coaching? Is it the O-line? Is it the receivers? Who the hell knows? But I'll tell you what it's not. It's the tight ends, ladies and gentlemen. Eric All with 3 touchdowns on the year, and Luke Lecce with 10 catches for 130 yards are the two most prominent weapons on this offense for Cade McNamara. Their leading wide receiver, guys, is Seth Anderson, who has 5 catches for just 79 yards on the year, and that's through 6 games. He's averaging less than 1 catch per game. First-round hopeful Cooper DeJean with 2 picks, but it's not enough. Give me Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm taking Wisconsin as well, but looking at the stats for this game, it's just such an odd one because Iowa just is, we just crapped all over them. We crap all over them all the time. But Iowa is currently in last place in FBS in yards per game. That's what I said was the reason to put them on my card here for Wisconsin minus 6.5. So I kind of played my hand on who I was taking in this game. The offense is awful. But the thing is, Wisconsin and Iowa are the only 2 Big Ten West teams left that are above 500. So Iowa still is going to have a little drive, a little fire in their bellies here. Because if you win this game and you're Iowa, despite the fact that your offense is non-existent, you become the clear division frontrunner with a win here against Wisconsin. So because they can keep games low scoring with that defense, anything can typically happen. Mordecai hasn't really quite worked out as much as Wisconsin has hoped. Definitely not putting up SMU-like numbers as he did before he transferred. But the big story here is obviously Wisconsin's running game versus Iowa's run defense. Wisconsin averaging over 200 yards rushing per game and 5.2 yards per carry. That leads the Big Ten in both of those categories. But Iowa on the other side of the ball, 9th in the Big Ten in yards rushing per game and 8th in yards allowed per carry. And most interesting stat here, as we've talked about Wisconsin's running game probably being what they need to lean on in their offense, the Hawkeyes have given up just 1 touchdown run all season. So that will be interesting to see going up against that Wisconsin run defense. 7:30, we've got a game that I know Tommy's going to have on. This is a redemption game for sure here. We have Notre Dame taking on number 9, USC. Tom, I'll start with you on this one. I'm sure you got all the facts for us here. Are you guys winning this one? Is it going to be close? What's happening here?
Guys, remember we talked about the UCLA Washington State game last week, and all 3 of us said Vegas is up to something here. Vegas is up to something again here as well. And well, I'm not confident at all of my football team right now, but there's some points that need to be made. USC is coming off 2 back-to-back games where their defense allowed 41 points at minimum to both Colorado and Arizona. They only beat those 2 teams by a combined 9 points. Caleb Williams, as impressive as he's been, with 22 touchdown passes, 6 on the ground, so 28-1 for touchdowns to picks. The ratio is great. Their defense is bad. It's very bad. Their secondary is non-existent. They have 2 good players on their defensive line I'm concerned about. That's Jamil Muhammad and Solomon Berg. Those are the 2 players on that defense that I'm worried about. I'm worried about stopping the run with Marshawn Lloyd, who averages 7.7 yards per carry, and then Austin Jones, who is great down near the goal line. My biggest thing here is how is Sam Hartman going to look coming off a 3-pick game? I wish he had wide receivers Taj Washington and Brendan Rice. I mean, those 2 guys are combined for 12 touchdowns and are really, really good. I don't think we have a single wide receiver that's over 250 receiving yards on the season. So, I mean, right there, I think kind of just explains it all, guys. They have to protect Sam Hartman up front. Audric Estime was awful last week. He couldn't get anything going, but he does have almost 700 yards and 7 touchdowns on the year. Mitchell Evans, the tight end, finally scored his first touchdown last week, but somebody has to step up. Is it Chris Tyree? Is it Jaden Thomas, Jaden Greathouse? I'm talking to you. Somebody step up, please. J.D. Bertrand and Jack Kaiser are great at stuffing the run. You don't want Jack Kaiser isolated in one-on-one coverage. That's a recipe to disaster. I don't want to see single high in this game. I mean, you have a great one tech in Howard Cross III. I really like what he's done, along with Javante Jean-Baptiste up the middle. Maris Leafau needs to be more disciplined. And here's the matchup, boys. Cam Hart against Taj Washington. Who is going to win that matchup? That could determine this game. I think USC has a letdown. I kind of alluded to it last week. This is not me being confident in Notre Dame at all coming off of last week's loss, but Notre Dame is at home. They're notorious for beating good teams at Notre Dame in big games. I'm going with the Irish in this one.
All right, Andy?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, Tom. I was going to say absolutely everything you just said, 100%. But yeah, like you said, what does Vegas know that I don't know? It's back-to-back weeks. I have not listened to that. I've multiple times this year, and it's spurred me, so give me the Irish. Simple as that for me.
Yeah, I agree with Andy in the fact that I don't think we can cover much more that Tom here did not about his own team. But yeah,
Oh,
this is
please.
this is a redemption game for Sam Hartman. Tommy talked about his struggles, but this is the type of game where you can get your morale back because that USC defense is a defense that only a mother could love. It is god awful. This is a game at Notre Dame, home game. It's a night game. The atmosphere is going to be crazy. I know we're probably out of CFP talks here for Notre Dame unless we see a lot of craziness up top. But they're still pulling for a possible New Year's Six bowl game spot. I think the crowd is going to be up for it. This is a huge game. Whenever USC comes to your house, the fans are going to show up. So it's going to be an electric atmosphere. This USC defense, it's bent and bent all year long, and I think it breaks here. Probably going to be a high-scoring shootout. But Tom, you'll like this one. I think Notre Dame's defense is better than USC, the advantage of USC's offense. I think Notre Dame wins this game by double digits. So that will move into our last game here. Oh, did I just jinx it?
We did it again. Just saying, we did it with Ohio State. We're doing it again here.
Hammer USC.
Oh man, I'm sorry. Well, that will move us into the last game here. If you don't want to watch the game that we just jinxed for you, it is Oregon State taking on UCLA. Andy, we'll start with you on this one. Pretty good matchup here. Who wins it?
Yeah, this is a good matchup for me. The matchup will be UCLA's run defense, only giving up 64 rush yards per game. How do they fare against this Oregon State team that's going for 205 yards on the ground? They're a very balanced offense. They're not asking DJ to do too much. Very methodical drives. They like to establish the run and make sure they get that rolling. And they do let him throw the ball, but not like we were really seeing when he was at Clemson. But does UCLA have back-to-back upsets in them? I don't know. Dante Moore responded really well to the adversity last week. Damn. Give me the Bruins.
It really is a close one. This is such an interesting matchup. Tom, who do you have in this one?
UCLA lost to Utah. Oregon State lost to Washington State. But UCLA beat Washington State, right? So you're kind of thinking, well, based off matchups, they should win. Here's the problem with that. Both teams run the ball very, very well. Over 200 yards per game, in fact, for each squad. Dante Moore, true freshman on the road. This is a big game for him. Relies a lot on Carson Steele. Their defense is good with Laitu, and then Darius Muasu. Ukulele, see, the thing with him is we just talk so much shit about this guy. He just refuses to graduate. But he's looked pretty solid at times. We have to give him credit. The Beavers are favored by 3.5 for a reason. His tight end is outstanding. Jack Vealing, 5 touchdowns on just 13 catches. Tight ends are really good in the red zone. That's why their touchdown numbers are typically, pretty high up there. Easton Mascarenas Arnold is going to have to control the tempo for the Beavers defensively if they're going to stop UCLA. UCLA is definitely covering that 3.5 point spread. I like that a lot, as we mentioned in earlier segments. But as far as the money line goes, I'm going the other way here. I'm taking the Beavers by 2 or 3 points.
All right. Yeah, it is such a hard game to pick. But I just right now my biggest question mark is still Dante Moore. I know I said that he's fitting in right now. He's more comfortable, but he is still freshman. This is going to be the biggest game. Another night game here. This game is at Oregon State, so definitely the biggest road game of his career thus far. But for me, all the pieces of UCLA just make this so much more interesting and put them that little bit over the top for me in this matchup. Chip Kelly, guy basically lived and breathed Oregon football for the better part of a decade with the Ducks. He now returns to the state to take on one of their biggest rivals, but with UCLA this time. But I am more interested here in, actually, like I said, the Bruins defense, which is surprisingly good, especially for a Pac-12 team. They held the Cougars, like you said, Tom, to only 216 yards. The 4th straight game that they held an opponent under 300 yards. That's an impressive feat in the Pac-12, where offenses are typically in the spotlight. UCLA holding opponents to an average of just 12.2 points per game, and they've kept every single opponent this season under 20 points. I think that is the most important thing here. Yes, DJ has gotten better, but he's not one of those QBs that's going to be a scoring machine for you. So if you can keep them under 3 touchdowns, it's going to be real difficult to beat a UCLA team that actually has a fairly potent offense here. It's a Chip Kelly run offense. We know what they can do. Yeah, I mean, the stat I have here for Dante Moore is averaging 16.5 yards per completion. It is third best nationally, but only 53.1% completion percentage. That is very questionable indeed. You got to keep those numbers up because, errant throws, questionable throws, you throw those into a danger like an Oregon State defense. You're going to get picked. You're going to give away possessions, and then the tide can turn on you real quick. But yeah, I can't believe, the shining star here of UCLA is the defense for me, but it is. So I'm taking them here to upset the Beavs in Corvallis. So that will wrap up our games of the week. That will wrap up our show. If you made it this far, please hit that like, hit that subscribe down below. And if you open up that description down below, you'll also find Mr. Andy Hopper's links down there, and boom, Mr. Tom Scavetta's links down there for their shows. The Brew Party for Andy, and review and preview for Mr. Scavetta. Enjoy the Week 6 games, everyone. We'll see you week 7 games. We'll see you next week for Week 8.